Yeah, I'm very happy here to be with Abdelfattah Abusrour, Dr. Abdelfattah, as it is called here in Aida, and he's a gem, to say, for Alrowwad Cultural and Arts Society. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm very proud on me and on behalf of the Austrian Palestinian solidarity movement to have the opportunity to be here with you and to talk about your experiences, personal experiences with a long struggle, and also the experiences, difficulties, challenges for the Alrowwad Cultural and Art Society. So, to begin with, can you tell us anything about your personal history?
It's a pleasure to have you with us, and great to connect with Austrian solidarity movement with Palestine. So I was born in this camp, in Aida refugee camp in Bethlehem, which is one of three refugee camps in Bethlehem, one of the 19 in the West Bank, in addition to 8 in Gaza, 10 in Jordan, 10 in Syria, and 12 in Lebanon. And was supposed to be a temporary situation, but 74 years later, we are still in these refugee camps. Not under the tents, but we have been for 6 years, and then in shelters, and then people started building on their own to live in dignity. Aida camp hosts around 6,200 people in a space of 0.07 kilometers square, and 2/3 of this population are under 24 years old, living in the north of Bethlehem, south of Jerusalem, surrounded by this illegal wall of expansion and annexation, and with the frequent incursions by the Israeli occupation army. My parents come from two villages, Beit Natif and Zakaria, two among 534 which were occupied and destroyed by Zionist groups in 1948. So, as 70% of Palestinians, we were forced to become refugees. I was one of the lucky people to get a scholarship to continue my studies in France, where I got my PhD in biological and medical engineering. That's why people call me doctor. But my heart was also with theater, painting, photography. So 9 years in France were a great opportunity to develop my academic work and artistic work. And returned to Palestine in 1994 after I finished my PhD, thinking that Palestine was only waiting for me to save it. So, of course, I started working with my biology degree to earn my living, teaching and doing research in Bethlehem University, and volunteering to train theater and painting. And in 1998, with a group of friends, I founded Alrowwad. Alrowwad means the pioneers in Arabic. And we started with a philosophy that I call beautiful resistance. Partly because I believe every act of resistance against injustice, oppression, occupation, dictatorship is a beautiful act of humanity. And resisting through culture, arts, education are great acts of resistance. The aim essentially was how to save lives, how to inspire hope, how to give our children and young people possibilities to express themselves in most beautiful, creative, peaceful, and hopefully non-armed ways, and think living for their country rather than die just for their country or whatever cause they are defending. Because at the end of the day, no parents in the world want to live the day where they bury their children. We want to see our children grow up, celebrate their lives and successes, and be proud of the heritage we leave for them. So that's why we started with theater, because I believe theater is one of the most amazing and powerful, non-politically correct ways, if you want, to express oneself. Tell your story, your version of your story and history, and hopefully this would be a way to build peace within yourself. If you lack peace within yourself, how can you make peace with anybody? And to be truthful to yourself, because if you are not truthful to yourself, how can you be truthful with anybody? So that's why we started with theater. And I wanted to have the youngest children theater group that they can talk and say what they want, be the main actors. It's not just an audience who adults perform to, but they are the ones who are on stage, who are being stars and tell what they want to say, and we are just facilitate this process. And our first theater play was called We Are the Children of the Camp, based on stories by children, based on their hopes and dreams and where they come from and what happened to their original villages and their reflection on this supposed to be peace process of Oslo in 1993 and all of this. And this play toured internationally, even in Austria, in Linz, which was capital of the culture in Europe in 2009 and so on. That was the only time we came and to Austria, in fact. But we have been in Sweden, Denmark, France, Belgium, United States, also United Kingdom, and so on. These tours are amazing possibilities to allow our young people to see normal life in free countries, but also allow meeting with people, see that we share a lot of things as human beings, and these similarities should bring us closer to each other. And see also that we have differences, and differences are the most beautiful gifts that we could have, because they are ways to enrich us and not make us afraid from each other. But of course, not everybody wants to do theater. So I did dance, Palestinian folkloric dance, dabka dance, photography, video, also to be behind the camera, not just in front of it. Show Palestine how we see it, how we dream it, how we hope it will be, and not just being portrayed by others and stereotyped by others. Adding music, singing, and so on. Connecting with other Palestinian communities, training trainers, working with kindergartens, with the schools, with parents, focusing on mothers and women, because I believe it's women who change the world much more than the men. So we try to build possibilities and provide facilities for all the community, regardless of age or color or sex or whatever, and make these possibilities for them to find their way to build peace within themselves, to be able to build it in our community to start with, before talking about others. Because Palestine is bigger than political parties and political agendas and persons. And the aim is to liberate Palestine and not to have the agenda of this political party, of that political party, or the agenda of donors who come to dictate us what we should do rather than consult with us and help us do what we really need to do. Mobile Beautiful Resistance was a program that we built to go all over the West Bank, train trainers, connecting with other Palestinian communities, with theater, dance, photography, games libraries. So we started creating games to make educational fun that reflects our culture, our identity as Arab Palestinians, and so on. But also as an act of resistance against this Bantustanization and segregation of Palestinian communities from each other.
This should be mine. Oh, but it's no. I'm sorry, very awfully sorry.
And so that's why the essence of touring locally, but also touring internationally, is an amazing way to build the bridges. The choice of performing and visual arts, culture, education, because these are bridges of pure humanity. When you see a theater play or a film, when you look at a painting or a photo, when you listen to music, I don't think anybody will say, I will not like it because it's American or French or Australian or Palestinian. You like or don't like based on how much it touches you. So this is where stereotypes disappear. And these are the bridges that we can build together as equals to save this better future for our children, your children, and the generations to come. So the also bringing values when we talk about justice, freedom, peace, equality, love. These are values that we share as human beings, regardless of our color or religion or ethnicity and so on. So these values are not elastic. They don't change based on new facts on the ground or the dictation of this leader or that leader. This is the essence of our humanity, and again, a heritage we can be proud to leave to children and the generations to come. But unfortunately, we see this double standards and this elasticity of values depending on who is the oppressed and who is the oppressor. With all the pain, sympathy, and empathy to Jews and their suffering, we were not the cause of their suffering. So make us pay for the crimes of the Nazis or Europe or whoever is a burden that we cannot carry on our shoulders and say we are fine with it. Palestine was, is, and will continue to be a land of multiplicity and diversity, a land of inclusion and not exclusion. Everybody can have a claim. Jesus was born here, so why shouldn't all the Christians say God promised them this land? Me as a Muslim could say also Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the skies from Jerusalem. Why shouldn't I claim that? And when Jews say it's only for them, this is an exclusive mentality that cannot fit with the culture and identity of Palestine and Palestinians. And you walk through the old city in Jerusalem, you see Armenian quarter, African quarter, Jewish quarter, Muslim quarter, Christian quarter, Indian corner, Afghani corner, and many others, more than 40 different ethnicities, nationalities. So this gives you the image of Palestine and Palestine. We have the oldest Israelite community in the world, the Samaritan community in Nablus, who live there since more than 3,500 years, who are direct descendants of Israel or Jacob alayhi salam. And they present themselves as Israelites, but not as Jews, since Judaism was not born yet. And as far as I know, Judaism started with Moses alayhi salam, coming from Egypt, lost in the desert for 40 years. Then David come as a conqueror alayhi salam, and then the kingdom of David and Solomon, and then other occupations come, and so on. So it's not an exclusive culture. A Palestinian Muslim, a Palestinian Christian, a Palestinian Jew, a Palestinian Israelite, a Palestinian this or that are Palestinians. But if you have Austrians who are Muslims or Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or whatever, they are Austrians or French or American or whatever. So it's not related to religion, your nationality in that sense. But okay, they want to mix religion with ethnicity and nationality and so on. That's their opinion. Why should I accept this inclusion of ethnicity and religion and so on? This is not my opinion about nationality and about citizenship for any people, exclusively because you are this, you are have more rights than anybody else. So here we are, after 74 years, trying to, on one side, defend our identity, our existence, continue this resistance through peaceful and sometimes armed ways. 99% of Palestinians never carried a gun in their life. We are portrayed as the terrorists, while we are in our legitimate right to resist occupation by all means, according to UN resolutions, according to international law, according to the right that is given today to Ukrainians against Russian invasion. As everybody, we have the legitimate right to resist by all means. Yet, 99% of Palestinians never carried a gun, and they resist through a lot of creative and non-armed ways, staying in their land, keeping their heritage, defending their food and embroidery and moral values and this hospitality and generosity to welcome people from different horizons. And when people come and say, you know, you should forget, how can you forget something that is happening with you until today? Because Israeli occupation did not end in 1948 or 1967, or there's supposed to be peace process in Oslo in 1993, which should have ended in 1998 with two states living in love and harmony, as they say. Occupation is still going on. They built this illegal wall of expansion and annexation for security. Why do they come here? Why do they come to this camp, for example, and throw these tear gas or shoot at people? We have been classified in Aida refugee camp as the zone the most exposed to tear gas in the world by a study by Berkeley University in 2017. And this continues until today. So, forgetting something that is happening with you, the Israelis clearly do not make it possible to forget. And when people say, you know, you should forgive, you should move on, we'll be happy to forgive, but who apologized or asked for our forgiveness? The British or the French? The French with Monsieur Jules Cambon, who was Minister of Foreign Affairs, who wrote a letter on the 4th of June 1917, followed by Lord Balfour on the 2nd of November 1917, promising a homeland for Jews in Palestine. Neither the French nor the British owned Palestine to give it on one side, nor the French nor the British have apologized for these promises that they didn't have the right to give. Nor the UN, which partitioned our country without asking for our opinion in 1947, have apologized or gave us justice until today, and recognized Israel on 78% of historical Palestine, and did not give the same recognition to a Palestinian state at that time or later on. And still ongoing and non-accountability for Israeli crimes and so on. Israel has the right to defend itself. Okay, I can agree with that. Why the Palestinians do not have that right? Why we are labeled as terrorists? While those who brought terrorism in this part of the world in 1920s and 30s and 40s were the Zionist groups who exploded buses and bombed villages and buildings like King David Hotel in Jerusalem and so on, killing Palestinians, but also British and even Jews. So that's why the terrorism that was brought to this country is not a manufacture of Palestinians. It was a manufacture of these terrorist Zionist groups, Haganah, Stern, Irgun, and many others. So that's why I guess there is this double standards in the international law that give hopelessness to the young generations, because they see these double standards, they see this elasticity, and those who come to teach us human rights and international law and the freedom and democracy and so on are the first to violate these values and so on, and make them so elastic depending on who is the oppressed and who is the oppressor. A victim is a victim, whatever color or religion or ethnicity they have. And we are with the victims, whoever they are, and we are, if I follow my Islamic education, with the oppressor, whoever they are, but being with the oppressor means that you prevent him from doing the oppression, according to Prophet Muhammad. So that's why we, those who care about Israel, should think that Israel should be accountable for what they are doing. If you have a friend who is a drug addict or alcoholic, what do? Give more drugs, more alcohol, or deprive them from having drugs or alcohol? If Israel is violating international law and practice an apartheid system according to every report that has been, whether Amnesty or UN and so on, why it's given carte blanche to continue their violation of international law? Why 80 resolutions of UN are not until today respected by this Israel and considered non-binding, even though the condition to recognize Israel was linked to recognizing and respecting UN resolution, especially the one which states that Palestinians have the right to return to their homeland and have the right to be compensated as well for their rights and for their suffering and so on. Until today, Israel violates UN resolutions and international law and escapes with it. And it is included within Europe, Eurovision, Eurosports, privileged agreements, and so on, and ongoing. Despite the fact that ministers, parliament members like the new Ben Ghafir and many others give license to kill Palestinians, to deport them, and even not only Palestinians, but even also the Jewish groups like the Natori Karta, or those who oppose the Israeli Zionist mentality and oppression against Palestinians and so on. So that's why for us it's important that when we talk about justice, freedom, peace, equality, love, these are values that we share as human beings, whether we are Muslim or Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or Hindu or atheist or whatever we are. We have no compromises to make on these values. This is the essence of our humanity, and again, the heritage we can be proud to leave to generations to come. So the challenges are this political situation where the international community look as the poor Israelis who need to defend themselves and these monstrous Palestinians who are terrorists by nature and born with genes of hatred or violence. Nobody is born with genes of hatred or violence, but nobody also is born to live under occupation, in slavery, under injustice, and say, I can coexist with that. If there is anybody in the world who can exist with injustice, oppression, occupation, violation of his or her rights and values, let us know. But if people do not accept it for themselves, how can they ask Palestinians to accept it and schedule it based on how much hours of tolerance we have for this oppression and occupation? The second challenge is being Palestinian is always stereotyped with this thing. And we have to oblige Palestinians to be under the rule of donors and their conditions. Why would I sign, according to European new laws, a civil Palestinian organization have to sign against terrorism as if we are born terrorism and we are encouraging terrorism? It has been since 2005 with US aid, for example, projects that also Palestinians should sign this kind of document. And Americans or Europeans or whoever have the right to declare that Abdelfattah Abusrour is terrorist or Martin is terrorist or whatever is terrorist. This is your right, but why should I agree with what you define as terrorism, while the real terrorists are in fact sponsored and encouraged, like Daesh or Al-Qaeda or whoever, by these who qualify those who resist under oppression and occupation as terrorists. If terrorism is killing innocent people, let's agree on that. We can agree on that, and we cannot allow anybody who is practicing genocides and killing innocent people to continue killing innocent people. But that applies everywhere in the world, and not just when the victims are defending themselves and so on. So that's why there is conditions on one side on political agendas that cannot fit, because even though 99% of Palestinians never carried a gun in their life, they have a legitimate right to resist by all means, including armed struggle, which cannot be qualified as terrorism in that sense. The second thing is deviating the agenda of Palestinians or other oppressed people from political into humanitarian. So all the humanitarian aid that has been poured into Africa, what did it do for Africans or Sudanese or whatever?
Creating dependency.
Creating dependency, but also having people feel that, oh, they have done something to help these poor, miserable people to eat and remain poor and miserable for the rest of their lives. We do not need this form of passive or negative charity. This is more humiliating than the occupation itself. Palestinians are not poor because we are lazy or don't have resources. We are put into the poverty on one side by this illegal Israeli occupation, which deprives us from the right to circulate freely, to import, to export, to manufacture, even to fall in love with whoever we want. With this segregation between Palestine 48, Jerusalem, Gaza, the West Bank, the world, but also by donor countries, which again come to dictate us what we should do, or we should change the curriculum in the schools. We do not need to talk about our history, our tragedy, and so on. And we should take the narrative of the oppressor and not the oppressed. We should erase the Quran, all these verses that talk about if you are oppressed, you have the right to resist the oppressor. If you are fought, you have the right to respond back and fight against the attackers or the oppressors and so on. And we should love in peace and harmony, that peace and harmony that keeps you subjugated to the oppressor and occupier and so on. So there is a huge hypocrisy in this elasticity of international community and complicity with an injustice that is going on. And we need to keep the Palestinians under the condition of if they do not do what we want, then we will cut the funds for them. And this is the threat against Palestinian Authority. And this is practiced by Israel to take even the tax money that should be given to the Palestinian Authority and be a kind of a threat or blackmailing. If you don't do what we want, then you will be not given your own money. It is challenging under this condition to accept dictations from any funder, to recognize that they have a right to delegitimize us from our right to resistance, and to qualify any act of resistance against terrorism, even when you choose moral, non-violent ways, like the BDS, boycott, divestment, sanction. You call for boycotting an apartheid system. Why this is criminal? Why people who call for boycott against Israel are criminalized? Why people who call for sanctions against an oppressor are criminals? Why people who demand the divestment from an oppressor system are terrorists? Of course, it can apply everywhere, but when it concerns Israel, it is terrorism, it is incitation of racial hatred, and even if it is called by Jews in Europe or United States or whatever, these Jews will be considered as self-hating Jews or traitors or even anti-Semitic Jews, even if they are Israeli Jews who call for that. And there are many who call to boycott Israel, to cure Israel, and not by hatred for Israel. So even when people choose moral and non-violent ways, like in boycott, divestment, sanction, they are not even allowed to do that. So what is left to people to protest or oppose a system of apartheid? Curriculums, go and exploit themselves? Is this what they want? When we toured with our shows in France, for example, and the United States, we have Zionist groups writing to every place we were going to perform, not to allow us to perform. What does this mean? If these young people want to go on stage and tell their stories and deprived from even that right to tell their narrative, what is the message then? Go and explode yourself, because whether you are on stage or write a poem or make a painting, you are terrorist by nature and it would not work. So these are also challenges. We are not given that space to tour and tell our stories in the most beautiful, creative, and peaceful way. We are challenged with our identity. We are challenged with all these fundings that come for projects of normalization, that it's good to put Israelis and Palestinians together as if the problem is between individuals. Yes, Israelis and Palestinians, some of them still meeting until today. Millions, tens of millions have been spent on projects of peace building, and until peace is pieces of cannot fit together. What change did it lead to? Have groups come and weep on the shoulders of each other and dance together and sing together and hallelujah, we made peace, then everybody goes back to his corner of the wall, nothing changes. It did not change this illegal war of expansion and annexation. It did not stop colonization. It did not stop apartheid laws and so on. We are not interested in public relations. We are interested if anything that happens can make a change and change the policies. And that's why, for me, this is not a productive way to go forward. We have our role to build our peace within ourselves, to be ready if there is a real peace. But the Israelis, and some of them are fantastic, and some of them work for Palestine probably more than some Palestinians. But their role is not to jump illegally, according to Israeli law, on this part of the wall, behind the wall, and say Israelis and Palestinians are working together, so everything is fine. This is hopeful. The Israelis, these amazing Israelis, have a responsibility, like Srour and Bethlehem and the groups of Breaking the Silence and so on, to make Israeli public recognize that there is an apartheid system, that this wall is illegal and it should disappear, that these colonies are illegal and they should disappear, that this apartheid these apartheid laws and the law of nationality that this is a country for Jews only should stop. When we are on equal grounds, we can make the most beautiful country in the world as equals, not as slaves and masters, and those who have the privilege to be Jews say it's a country for Jews only and nobody else can. This is our country. My name is Abdelfattah Abdelkarim Hassan Ibrahim Muhammad Ahmad Mustafa Ibrahim Srour Abusrour. These are 11 generations. Among these 11 generations, I was the first to be born in a refugee camp. My father, his father, grandfather come from a village called Bethlehem, which is about 17 kilometers to the southwest of Jerusalem. It was destroyed on the 21st of October 1948 among these 534 villages. My mother village is called Zakaria, again 4 kilometers to the west of Bethlehem, destroyed also 1948 and so on. Why should I forget and say it's not realistic that I reclaim my right to return while a Jew comes from Ukraine or from France or Belgium or whatever country and say God promised him this land 5,000 years ago. And this is very realistic. There is a problem with this realistic or not realistic of reclaiming your right to return and so on. So that's the essence of it. Alrowwad started with or without money we do it because we rejected the transformation of Palestinian cause into humanitarian cause. We do not need crumbs on the table and people to say we have helped these poor miserable people to remain miserable for the rest of their lives. We need your support, yes, and we welcome every partnership, but partnership, discuss with each other, build infrastructures, create jobs, help people keep their dignity, and not just weep on us and say we will pray for you and everything is fine, and just keep living and we will give you some food and clothes and everything is fine. We have done our humanitarian duty. This is more humiliating than the occupation itself. We need people to give dignity and not a humiliation. And we need to show our people in their strength and dignity and not in their weakness and the humiliation. So I understand that on some occasions, catastrophes, emergencies, people send food and so on. But why should I put all these people who I give food or clothes or medicine in line and say, look at us, how amazing we are. We are distributing food and so on to these miserable people, and you can weep and blackmail you emotionally so that you can give more. This is humiliating for the giver and the recipient. And we cannot do that, and we refuse to do that as well. We do our work, and we send whatever in times of crisis. We create an emergency cell working 24 hours a day during the COVID and during incursions by the Israeli occupation army, even when there is hard weather, when there is snow or heavy rain and so on, to help the community. But we don't need to show every people who receive food or who receive even a scholarship for university students or whatever, document every image and so on. We have the files. If the donor wants to see, they can come and check and visit the people, but no photos for the recipients, because we are not here to humiliate people, and they are not people who choose to be poor and miserable, and they are not poor because they are lazy or don't have resources. They are put into the poverty by the Israeli occupation on one side and its policies, and by donor policies and so on. Lack of resources, lack of possibilities. There is more than 60% of unemployment rate in Aida refugee camp. There is more than 70% or 80% in Gaza. During the COVID, it was more than 90% in Bethlehem area, because it is a town which is mainly dependent on tourism and so on. And 90% of its income is tourism and so on. Freelancers, artists, cultural centers have been without any income, including Alrowwad. It has been 3 months now without any salary for our employees. And yet we try to continue to work and provide activities, because our philosophy is not based on projects. Projects come, we do it, finish, and then we move to another according to the agenda. We have programs that continue. They expand or shrink depending on the funding, but they will not stop because there is no funding. Theater, dance, music, photography, video, supportive education program for children who have difficulties or trauma, women program that they meet and interact and discuss what is the priority for them. And it's them who tell us how we can help them or what they need to be helped, and not Abdelfattah Abusrour or whoever comes to say the women need this and the children need that and so on. We respond to needs and not come with an agenda that is reflecting the projects that are funded or not. If the projects are in line with what we do, then, or according to a need that we can develop, then that's great. And that's why we developed and expanded our program from just making a theater performance group into adding the arts program, dance, music, singing, photography, and video as programs now that we are looking for partners to create a cinema school and production house for young cinema makers. Developing our program to be more professional, a music school, again developing our programs to be more professional and compete with the international groups and so on, with an orchestra, with film productions and so on, create possibilities for those who are interested in these fields to have a space where they can do what they want and not be dictated, because it's not good to do arts. You should be doctor, engineer, doctor, engineer, doctor, engineer, as in my generation, and nothing else counted. The women program, it's the women who decide what they need, not the funder, not me, and so on. And the health and environment program as awareness and promoting care about health and environment, medical days, or whatever, greenhouses and the roofs of the houses and so on. And the professional training with the new building that we started in 2014. There is a carpentry, there is a guest house on 2 floors, there is a restaurant that during the COVID time worked, especially in the month of Ramadan, to cook meals and deliver them to homes. So you can see on our Facebook or YouTube channel or website all the process that we have done in our space until the food package goes to the houses, but you will not see anybody receiving. We cooked this year 20,150 meals that were delivered, not only in Aida Flüchtlingscamp, but all the surrounding area. Last year it was 17,000. The first year in 2020, with the first year of COVID, it was about 11,500 meals. So we expanded despite the lack of income, the lack of support from friends of Alrowwad in different countries. Friends of Alrowwad are the aim to have people who can support monthly or yearly and who have no conditions in the sense that you should do this and not that. They, for us, they can direct their funding towards the education program, women program, arts program, or health and environment, or professional training. But they will not say, oh, you should create a theater play about AIDS and make work of awareness in the schools, like, unfortunately, what our own Ministry of Health wrote me once. I refused, because AIDS is not a priority in Palestine. And it's not to go to children who are 15 years old or 16 years old to talk about awareness and sexual relations and stuff like that. Its priority is not there. Priority is teeth problem, where there is more than 800,000 children with cavities and teeth problem. Junk food in the schools canteen, garbage in the streets, and so on. So there is a difference between an agenda that comes to you from another level, according to the donor, who think that Palestine is like Africa, is like whatever country where AIDS is a huge problem, and so on. We need to respond to our priorities and needs, and not the donor agenda. And the donor should listen to us if they really want to help us do what we really need to do, and not deviate us from what we need to do, and so on. So that's why challenges are financial, challenges are political, challenges are moral even sometimes, and challenges are depending on the fashion of the funding policies of the coalition nations of funders or donor countries what they think the priority today is and generalize that as if it applies everywhere in the world. Challenges are to close your possibility of protesting against an injustice or an apartheid system and attack you anti-Semitic, anti-this, anti-that. Palestinians are Semites, whether they are Muslims or Christian or Jewish or whatever. It's related to Sam, son of Noah, alayhi salam, and not to religion. So Palestinians, Muslim, Christian, Jews, Israelites, whatever, are all the people in this part of the world, descendants of Sam, are Semites, while Europeans are Japhethites, descendants of Japheth, another son of Noah, and Africans, descendants of Ham, another son of Noah, and so on. And they are on equal grounds. They are equal in terms as sons of Noah, and so on. So it's not, again, oh, blacks are inferior and whites are superior. We are brothers, cousins, on that level on equal ground. So it cannot be used as reflection of religion or reflection of ethnicity or whatever. And put people on different levels as the elites of God and those who are not elites of God or whatever. So that's why confusing the world with Semite is equal to Jew, is equal to Israeli, is equal to Zionist, are four terms that are not equal on any level. Is every Semite Jew? No. Is every Jewish Semite? Again, no. Is every Jew Zionist? No. Is every Zionist Jewish? No. Is every Jew Israeli? No. Is every Israeli Jewish? 20% are non-Jewish Palestinians, and even half of those who were brought from Russia were not Jewish. Half of those who were brought in from Ethiopia also were not Jewish, and so on. So there is this mixing to make people feel that if they criticize Zionism, they are anti-Jewish. If they criticize Israel as a country, as an occupation, they are against Judaism. If they are this, it's a problem of confusing people and giving this mix-up and terrorizing people. If they dare to criticize Israel, then they are anti-Semitic, while again, anti-Semitic does not forcibly mean anti-Jew, and so on. But they have always the exclusivity of these terms. They are the owners of Abraham and Rachel, who has placed, in reference, Rachel tomb here on the place of the mosque of Bilal ibn Rabah, which has been converted into synagogue after the occupation of 1967. As if Rachel or Abraham or Jacob alayhi salam, Israel, or all the prophets are property for Jews only, and Muslims or Christians do not have the same respect for these prophets and so on. So anyway, it's we expanded a little bit, but the essence of it is that we care about our children, we care about your children and every child in the world, that we need to be truthful to what we defend as just and right, and that a victim is a victim, whoever they are, and an oppressor is an oppressor, whoever they are, and we need to support the oppressed whenever there is need, and identify with the victim, whoever he or she is, and go to stop the oppression of the oppressor if we care about them. Because at the end of the day, we are equal human beings, and we should be able to share and defend the same values that we try to pretend, or that we pretend to defend in every speech and every conference and so on. And the human rights are human rights for everybody on equal grounds, and not selective process of superior and inferior races, as some try to promote. And so on.
Thank you very much. I would have another question. So, as a child growing up in Algeria in current times, what are the experiences that a child from Algeria would face, and in which ways
In Aida camp, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, Palestinian children now live in an age of technology and rapidity, and they don't wait for the magical wand to change anything. There is a huge hopelessness in the sense that they look at these policies of international community and see that there is violation of the values they pretend defending. They see that we as elders and our parents and the grandparents have made promises and waited for the international community to react and to stop the Israeli occupation, did not manage to do that. So sometimes they take their destiny by their hand. You know, many times we do kind of storytelling or discussion with the children and young people, their hopes and dreams and so on. So of course, when you talk about education, there is those who want to be doctors, engineers, lawyers, pilots, artists, singers, nurses, teachers, and so on. But surprisingly, sometimes until these days, we have 8 years old children or 10 years old children who come and look you in the face and say, I want to die. Why a child who is 8 years old or 10 years old say, I want to die? Why do you want to die? He says or she says, because nobody cares. When the Israeli soldiers come in the middle of the night or at 2 in the morning, knocking our door, putting our house upside down, arresting my brother or sister or mother or father or whatever, you are not there. Nor the Palestinian Authority, who has no real authority on anything, nor this international community who talk about children rights and women rights and so on. So what's the use of living? And if I live and graduate from university and become unemployed and so on, so where is the future? Politically speaking, or socially speaking, or economically speaking, there is no future, and so on. So there is hopelessness in that sense. Yet, a lot of time when people say it's hopeless, I say we don't have this luxury of despair. We cannot afford this, neither as a Muslim nor as a human being. So that's why we continue to struggle and give every possibility and expand our programs to have these young people have a space where they can have their peace one way or the other, to be able to build peace in their community to start with. The second thing is missed opportunity. We have young people who are excellent students, who have the highest grades, but no financial means to continue their education or realize the dream they want. Become workers, building or cafe or restaurant or hotel or whatever. Again, huge resources are lacking in this side of the world. And going to the Israeli side, need to buy a permit, 2,500 shekels per month for the permit, the cost of the permit, whether you find work or don't find work or sneak around. It's always this struggle to live and so on. And the third thing is that there is no political horizon for us as people, but the young people are more sensitive to it because they live with these incursions by the Israeli occupation army every day. They are the ones who are exposed immediately to tear gas if they dare to protest, and even without protesting, there is a free incursions by the Israeli occupation to tell on one side that they are the ones who are in control of everything, to discredit the Palestinian Authority as no authority on any level, and put the pressure targeting children and young people to break them morally, socially, emotionally, on every level, that there is no future. So the best way is to die or become drug addicts eventually or whatever. So that's why it's challenging for these young people, much more than us, much more than the older, despite the occupation, I know, because the occupation become more extreme and extreme, and not only is linked to the occupation, but it's linked also to the international community, who doesn't make easy and doesn't leave a space of hope for these young people and so on. So that's why we race with time, so that hopefully our young people think life and living for your country or whatever cause you are defending is better than just to die
Mhm.
eventually by despair as well and so on. People have the resistance in their blood. It's a culture, and I'm not talking about just carrying a gun and shoot, but living here, existing here, going to school, going to university, going to work, cross the checkpoint and wait or go around the checkpoint, fall in love, getting married, have children, celebrate a birthday, celebrate every single moment with joy, and so on. All this, keeping your humanity, your dignity, all of this are acts of resistance for Palestine. So this is a culture of resistance, and not just resisting by culture or resisting by art or resisting by poetry or whatever. It's a whole concept of culture of resistance that the Palestinians master one way or the other, as master the art of life and living.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much.